Fandom culture is, for the lack of better term, weird. Or should I say terrifying? Nobody can really explain it. It is this overwhelming sense of passion that can easily cross the line into pure obsession over something. People can get so unhinged over someone who doesn't even know they exist, or something that is completely fictional, that they are willing to damage everything else in their path just to, in a sense, worship them. We see it everywhere, and we hear about it all the time. The ever so popular K-pop stans, the very unique anime communities, and nowadays, even gamers. The higher-ups in human society capitalize on this craziness, because obsession equals money. Unironically, the movie about it is one of the most profitable movies ever created in human history. Most of these businesses are incredibly successful, but recently, Infold, the company that made Love in Deepspace, learned the hard way that this method they are using is a double-edged sword. Over the span of a single week, a new character was announced, completely torn to shreds by a portion of its own community, weaponized into a massive political scandal, and permanently scrubbed from existence. It is easily one of the most explosive, fast-moving corporate panic moves we have ever seen in live service gaming. The whole situation became a massive mess, involving everything from boxes of actual cow poo mailed to corporate offices to literal threats of government intervention. Yeah, it is a completely messy topic, but I worked really hard to list the events that happened, and I took in as much information as I could into the script, so by the end of this video, you will understand in full the situation at hand. If you want to see more content from me, feel free to smash the like button and subscribe. Hit the notification bell icon to keep up with my videos. Without wasting any more of your time, let's just get right into it. What is Love and Deepspace? You're probably thinking as you mindlessly click this video, not knowing what it is, having only heard of it before from someone you know, and oh my god, this video is recommended to you for some reason. Don't worry, I will explain it to you very easily. Love in Deepspace is a massive multi-billion-dollar otome game, meaning a romance game made specifically for women. Not saying that men cannot play it, it is just in the definition. The game relies on extreme first-person immersion. The main character is someone you can self-insert to, and well, your role as the player is to become these men's love interest. The graphics are high tier, and you are interacting with these characters from a direct first-person perspective, well, at least most of the time. Because of that, most players don't view these characters as products. They view them as their digital boyfriends. And to be honest, I can see why. They all look really good, sound very good, and act very good. They are like your ideal dream boyfriend that somehow the real world could never create. And up to this point, the game's universe revolved around 5 core love interests: Xavier, Zane, Raphael, Silas, and Caleb. For these men, the players spend months of daily efforts and thousands of real dollars to unlock highly intimate, interactive storylines with their favorite guy. So it is logical to assume that the emotional and financial investment here is incredibly high, which means the community is fiercely protective of how these digital partners are treated by the developers. Just don't mess with their boyfriends, is what I'm trying to say. But it is not all sunshine and butterflies. During a surprise Supermoon Countdown livestream, June 22nd, they announced a brand new 6th love interest named Valko, known as 𝗖់cie𝗽𝘆𝗶𝗵𝗵𝗁 in the Chinese servers. They pitched him as a 26-year-old, pretty tall tech chairman who happens to lead a werewolf clan, and they scheduled his big debut for the version 6.0 updates on July 9th. A new character is supposed to bring in excitement. Finally, something new in the game. But this time, the game got a completely different reception. A very, very bad reception. Now, there are a couple of reasons why Valko is apparently so hated by the CN community. Opinions are subjective, right? I don't need to tell you that. There is really no right or wrong. But when there is a massive wave of hate echoing the same opinion, that subjectivity might as well be regarded as a fact. Even though in reality, that is not the case at all. The first thing they were mad about was the character design. Apparently, Valko looked like he belonged in a completely different game. If you look at the other 5 guys, they all have this kind of K-pop idol Asian aesthetic, with their small faces, sharp jawlines, and elegant, nonchalant looks. But Valko looks more Western. His jaw is wider, and he is more square-faced than anyone else in the cast. He looks rugged and more feral. To me, he looks kinda good. And most of the global player base, or at least the ones I have seen, are pretty satisfied satisfied with his design. But for a portion of the player base from the mainland China, they are calling him the ugliest male lead in Chinese otome game history. But the real issue is when they voice their opinion, is that apparently he looks gay. And this one is deadass. Like, they're actually not joking when I say that they are shaking in their boots about this. They were genuinely terrified the developers were going to start pandering to a male audience instead of keeping the game focused on the target audience. That's why we discussed the definition of an otome game earlier. It gets worse when we get to the story, because Valko was introduced as the chairman of Aeon Core Tech, a company that links him directly to the main villainous organization in the game's universe. This faction has actively hunted and harmed the original 5 boyfriends. You remember what I said in the beginning about not messing with they boyfriends? You get where this is going, right? In an otome game where romance and emotional trust are central, many found it hard to root for or spend money on a character tied to groups that oppose or harm the MC and the other love interest. Or in other words, the friend of the enemy of my anime husbando is also my enemy. The thing is, removing him will create plot holes in the lore, because he was an essential character that tied these things together. I guess these people just don't care about the lore and care more about their mains, which is fine. Preference, I suppose. The promotional material didn't help either. The early trailers featured this scene where Valko turns into a wolf and enters the main character's apartment completely uninvited. He drops lines like, "What is wrong with letting a wolf into the house?" As much as that is unique, a lot of these people found that to be creepy. They felt like it was romanticizing home invasion or a stalking scenario. But dude, if you have played these games before, why are you drawing the line here? Other characters have done arguably worse than this. Like, for example, kidnapping? That's not a problem when they do it though. But the wolf boy, yeah, no, the line. Am I right? As much as I'm talking about it jokingly, this is actually serious. So much that a state media outlet in China weighed in heavily against the game regarding this topic. They pointed out that breaking into someone's residence is a serious crime, and packaging a strange man sneaking into an apartment as a romantic surprise sends a dangerous message about women's safety. Like, they are not playing around. To be fair, they do have a point, but let's not stop at Valko. The next point is more about the game than the players themselves. Love and Deepspace is a gacha game. I'm pretty sure you know that already. If you don't know, well, now you know. Being a gacha game is how they get their billions of dollars in revenue. Just so you know, Love and Deepspace is almost always in the top 3 most earning gacha games of all time. Like, literally every single month, top 3 always Love and Deepspace. They seduce the players into spending real money. The best kind of manipulation, am I right? But anyways, I have seen people on the internet saying, well, if you don't like him, then just don't pull him. As much as that makes complete sense, that is not how this game works. The gacha system is kinda complicated, but basically, while there are systems where the game helps you to get stories and memories from the specific characters you want, you can still lose the gamble and get the memories of other characters you don't want. So there is no guaranteed way of completely avoiding a character. Maybe for the 5 original members of the cast, most of these people would be happy with getting the memories of any character, but with the addition of Valko, getting him would be repulsive, because as discussed just before this, they hate him. Like, a lot. They hate him. There is always a chance of getting him if he were to be added into the game. So what is the solution for it? Don't add him into the game. The way the developers handled the initial outrage was a complete joke. Infold Games completely ignored the heavily complaints and criticism, and they just spammed the word sorry in the comment sections while desperately telling the players to look at his bright eyes. What? They also officially declared all the protagonists are heterosexual for the very first time, because people were calling him gay, which everyone saw as a weak attempt to deflect the brewing storm. According to a Weibo AI summary from that week, the official channels accumulated nearly 600,000 negative comments. That is wild. In a really, really horrible way. By June 27th, expressing hate on the internet forums wasn't enough. In the most deranged way possible, a portion of the community decided to take things offline, and they targeted the actual paper games and Infold Games studio headquarters in China. People started delivering stuff in real life directly to the office. They stuffed actual cow poo inside the company's delivery lockers, to the point where visitors claimed that you could literally smell the odor inside the building.
Disgusting!
And outside of the building for promotional reasons, Paper Games had installed a giant Valko wolf print display and a large themed balloon. The protesters completely surrounded it with truly disturbing items. They left white and yellow chrysanthemums. If you look up what these flowers symbolize, they actually have a good meaning: joy, positivity, loyalty, and remembrance. But the thing is, these flowers are culturally used as funeral flowers, especially in the Chinese traditions. So by doing this, they were essentially wishing death upon the recipients. If you think that is not bad enough, they also threw in curse banners, glutinous rice, and pomelo leaves, which are traditional folk items used in spiritual cleansing rituals. These people used them sarcastically to suggest that Paper Games had been possessed by this new character and needed to ward off the evil spirits. Someone even delivered a banner that straight up said the new male lead is a wild boar, which got things so heated the company reportedly threatened to call the police. These people actually came on site and acted so incredibly sick in the head. These people are freaks, crazies at the highest levels possible. Obviously, the company had to drastically step up its physical security measures around the headquarters, restricting public access to stop people from coming in to take provocative photos or make obscene gestures. At the same time, the game's official Chinese social media accounts took a massive hit, losing around 1 million followers across platforms almost overnight. In July 28th, Paper Games tried to patch things over by releasing an official statement, but they didn't cancel Valko. They're still going to be adding him as the 6th male lead, but to quiet the crowd and address their complaints about the company focusing too much on the new character and ignoring the older ones, they promised that the story updates for characters like Caleb and Silas were in development, and they threw in some free in-game currency, giving everyone 20 free character pulls in total. Usually things like these would calm down the fire, but the player base was not having it. So much so that the mainstream media outlets like Beijing Daily published a scathing commentary titled 6 Questions for Love in Deepspace. Like, what the actual hell is this? These people even got to the media channels? The world is a scary place, bro. But that is not as scary as how they managed to string Valko into real-life tragic events. This is where things take a really dark, somehow political turn, because the community started relating the game's lore into actual historical trauma. A couple of months back, in April, the game put out a story update that included an in-game file about human drug trials. It was labeled Test Record 𝗖cie𝗽𝗆𝗵𝗁. In China, that number is a topic so incredibly toxic that you just do not touch it. This instantly reminds people of Unit 731, the infamous Imperial Japanese Army units that performed horrific lethal human experiments on Chinese civilians during the World War II. To make it worse, a character in that same storyline was named something that phonetically sounds almost exactly like a major Japanese war criminal who was executed. Since Valko's lore tied him to the villainous company running these dark in-game experiments, the fandom that hated him pinned the entire controversy right on him as a character. That is when the government noticed. I know, right? Shocking. Women's Daily, which is one of the state media outlets in China, published a damning critique about the situation. They basically said that calling this a random coincidence looks weak and self-deceptive. They even openly stated they hoped relevant departments would step in to thoroughly investigate and punish the company according to law. People view this as the literal downfall of the game's entire existence. Because, well, the government is literally gonna investigate your video game. You're cooked. It doesn't stop there though. During the live stream, they used the phrase, "take a bath in the pot," to promote Valko. Somehow these players linked that phrasing to a horrific real-life 2024 domestic violence case known as the Iron Pot Wife incident, where a man brutally murdered his wife by forcing her head into a pot of boiling soup. From this kind of framing, the company using a phrase that mirrored a recent real-world femicide case to market a dominant personality fictional boyfriend completely disgusted the CN player base. A lot of the EN player base saw this and basically called this whole claim a complete reach. There is no way the company actually meant to refer to a real-life crime to market their new love interest character, but there is really no way of knowing unless the devs themselves put out a statement. Well, they did, just not in the way that you would think. June 30th was the day Infold Games completely bent the knee to the demands of a loud portion of the player base. They realized the political heat, the threat to their bank accounts, even the threat toward the game and company as a whole were just too much to handle. They They issued a massive statement and basically deleted Valko. He was gone forever before even launching. They also promised they would never introduce a new male lead again, permanently locking the roster to the original 5 boyfriends. We won! The CN player base thought, and you might think it was all over, but it wasn't. When you look at what happened behind the scenes, things get really depressing. The voice actor for Valko lost his job before the character even went live. Love in Deepspace had an event at the Anime Expo just a few days after the statements, and there were supposed to be 6 booths, which included one for Valko. The cosplayer for the character lost his job, and his efforts spent deeply learning how the character acts. He probably also spent a lot of time making the outfits, and now it's all for naught. Anime Expo opened its doors, but Valko is nowhere to be found. Leaks from the internal production team started floating online, and it turned out the developers were completely devastated. There were messages showing the staff was in tears during meetings because they had to delete these characters they had spent months building. One employee wrote that they had been beta testing him, calling him Little Wolf, and they literally had to watch him get wiped from existence because of these crazy people. The exact quote was, "I raised him from birth and witnessed his death." Global fans started treating the cancellation like a real person had tragically died, literally filling the timeline with fan arts and just mourning on what they lost. This started an entire movement from the global player base who actually wanted Valko to be live. The game's official global Twitter accounts started shedding followers by the minute, plummeting from 700,000 down to 650,000 in just a couple of days. Every post they made would have tens of thousands of comments asking the devs to bring back Valko. Like, just look at that ratio. Those are insane numbers. I have never seen anything like this. Fans launched massive online petitions to bring him back, with one gathering 93,000 signatures and another one racking up a massive 230,000, and they hit the 100,000 mark in a single day. Then they successfully review bombed the game on the Google Play Store, and that drops the game score to a historically low 1.1 stars. Not even the Genshin community, with all of its strength, could ever get the game's rating that low. People who had spent money in anticipation of his release started demanding mass refunds, threatening lawsuits under global consumer protection laws for false advertising. Throughout the entire time, in the worst way possible, love in Deepspace as a topic was trending astronomically. The developers panicked, and they tried to suppress the hellish wave of criticism from the global audience. They locked down almost all of their official global communities, including their Discord servers and the main subreddits. They shut down every single operational channel except for the general chat room, and they slapped a highly restrictive 10-minute slow-mo timer on it, meaning you could only send one message every 10 minutes. But it didn't work. Even with that massive delay forcing people to wait, the text channels kept blowing up. The primary anger settled on how incredibly cowardly 𝗖𝗍 looked compared to the other industry giants. Players started bringing up Hoyoverse, the massive company behind Genshin Impact, when Chinese anti-fans went completely insane trying to get a character removed from Genshin, doing crazy things like killing actual cats and doxing employees. Hoyoverse completely ignored them and kept the character in the game. 𝗖𝗍, on the other hand, not to downplay the harassments, deleted an entire character in less than a week. Global players felt completely disrespected, calling 𝗖𝗍 a total coward for setting a highly dangerous corporate precedent, meaning they basically proved to the internet extremists that throwing a toxic, violent public tantrum gives you a total power over the game's future direction. The movement is not even close to being done, not until either the character actually comes back alive with some tweaks and fixes, or until the players move on. There are players renting billboards to send a message to the devs about Valko, and cosplayers going to events cosplaying as Valko, getting so much love from everyone. People are continuing to talk about the topic, bringing light to the issue. The community is incredibly united for this. And to be honest, that is the only good thing I've seen about this situation as a whole. What we are having with Valko here isn't just a character launch missing the mark, it is somehow one of the fastest, most shameless corporate surrenders in the history of live service gaming. Surely 𝗖𝗍 Games could have just delayed the update, or tweaked the design, or make a statement about the lore, or anything. They just completely erased months of development, efforts, and emotional buildup in a matter of days. In my opinion, the most important thing, or rather the most horrifying thing, is that by doing this, completely deleting a fully finished project in less than a week with barely any communication, 𝗖𝗍 sent a terrifying message to the community. No, to the whole world. They basically provided validation that toxic public tantrums, harassing office workers, characters and their environments and relating game stories to real-world crimes actually work. If you do not like how the new character looks or plays, you don't have to leave constructive feedback. Just do what these people did. It works. The devs listen. Isn't that scary? Every single time the writers want to introduce a complex plot twist, a morally gray character traits, or a new mechanical shift in the future, they are going to be terrified of their own player base. The extremist now knows that they own the steering wheel of a multi-billion-dollar company, and I don't know what's more unhealthy for a game than that. It leaves you wondering where the line actually is. When a corporate developer yields this completely to a toxic boycott, does it show a company that genuinely listens to its players, or does it just send a dangerous precedent that is inevitably going to stifle the game's future? How do you think Infold should have handled this instead? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you have watched this far. Maybe share the video to the people you think might enjoy these kinds of topics. But that is all from me, 𝗖cie𝗽𝘆𝗵𝗵, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers.